Hello, welcome to High Cheese with Darren Maloney. Today is Friday, March 4th, 2022. Now, I don't know if you remember some of my past episodes. I mentioned that between now and November of 2022, which is the midterm elections, we face some of the most dangerous times in this country's history. And with that said, I just want to stress that Putin is a bad guy. Putin is not our friend. And likewise, the globalists are not our friend. And unfortunately for the Ukrainian people, this battle between Putin and the globalists is playing out. And I do feel terrible for the people of Ukraine that are getting hurt. With that said, I just want to switch to a clip from Tucker Carlson this week. And after we get back, we'll discuss.
Only a relative handful of those Russians had any role in the invasion of Ukraine. Many of them opposed it, but all of them are being hurt as their economy comes apart. And that's fine, because they all deserve it. Michael McFaul, Barack Obama's former ambassador to Moscow, who now teaches at Stanford University, announced today that every single person in Russia, every single one, bears the guilt of the Ukraine invasion. Quote, "There are no more innocent, neutral Russians anymore. Everyone has to make a choice, support or oppose this war." So to restate and be clear, there's no such thing as an innocent Russian. One of our foremost Russia scholars has told us so. Putin may have given the orders to invade Ukraine, but 6-year-old girls in St. Petersburg should pay the price for it because they deserve it. Their 80-year-old grandmothers deserve it too. In order to fight tyranny, the United States must embrace collective punishment, hurt the children to bring justice. These are our values. Now, these are not traditional Western concepts of justice, but Joe Biden wholeheartedly endorses them, and so does a dominant bipartisan coalition in the United States Congress.
Now, what I take away from this is the same thing I hope that you take away from this, is these globalists with these sanctions want to crush Russia. They want to starve Russian kids. They want to starve Russian mothers. Now, you tell me, what's the difference between Putin throwing bombs on a schoolhouse and killing a bunch of kids versus the globalist attempt to starve kids? One is a little more brutal, one lasts a little longer. But the intent is to kill your kids. I don't care whether you throw bombs on them or you starve them. It's the intent of both. And again, I feel sorry for the Ukrainians that are in the middle of this. And this is what the globalists want to do to these poor Russian kids. And again, I am not defending Putin, but there are no good guys here fighting it out in the Ukraine. And I just hope that we avoid any kinetic war with Russia. Because here's the problem. The problem is the globalists are going to realize that they are going to lose this. I've just looked at the existing sanctions and the existing mechanisms that Russia has to avert those sanctions. And Putin's going to survive. Sorry to say that. But short of a nuclear bomb in Moscow, Putin is going to survive. Now, I could be wrong. I don't think so. And when the globalists realize that Putin will weather this storm, they will try to create chaos. And I see that right now happening. And I just find it terrible what they're trying to do. Now, let me just go. I want to bring it back to a clip to it's a Creighton economist, and they're just talking about what these sanctions are going to do to the Russian people. Then we'll come back and discuss.
Could take steps that are almost self-evident now. The end point, if he's not negotiating a settlement, the cost to his citizens are grave.
I just have a problem with that. How matter-of-factly that this economist comes out and essentially says starving Russian kids is grave. And no response from anybody. But it seems okay because Putin attacked Ukraine, so it's okay for the globalists to starve Russian kids. And I think, as Tucker said, that's not an American concept. But the problem is when you start aligning yourself with globalists, it does become your concept. And that's what we have here. We have two bad actors duking it out in Ukraine. And again, I feel sorry for the Ukrainians. Now, I think it's becoming evident that these sanctions, as we see right now, are not having an effect. I think that the effect that it will have is not going to be, it won't be for months from now. And even with that said, is that the workarounds on some of these sanctions is, it can be done. Russia's already done it with Crimea. Now, I understand that the sanctions have been amped up, but as long as they've got allies in China, India, and a good chunk of the world, they can circumvent this. I'm not saying it's going to be painless for Putin, but they can be circumvented. So here's what I've read. I've read that they now want to amp up by banning all gas and oil in Europe. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to switch you to, I think it may be the energy commissioner for the EU, and that's the European Union. That's where the party of Davos has a wonderful time and have a lot of allies. So let me just play a little clip from her, and then we'll come back and discuss. I think we're going to have a lot of clips today. I hope you don't mind, but there's a lot on the table right now.
There might be a retaliation from Russian side. So yes, we are ready that Russia's retaliation might cover energy sector. We do have contingency plans in place for the case of partial or full disruption of natural gas, for example.
And it's so funny the spin that this person is putting on this situation. The only way that Europe will not get gas or oil from Russia is if they put sanctions on gas and oil from Russia, which it hasn't been done yet. And what I find additionally funny is that she's saying, oh, we have a plan. We have a plan. Well, you know, she doesn't go into detail what that plan is. But you know what that plan is? The Europeans are going to freeze. They will have $15 a gallon or per liter gasoline. And it's the regular people in Europe that will suffer, not them. They don't want to tell you that. But that's their plan. So their plan is, yes, you will suffer, not me. And it's funny that Germany has a little different spin on this thing. The German economic minister has come out and said, well, wait a second, hold on, guys. We need this oil. We need this gasoline. Because we'll destroy Germany's economy if we can't get oil or gas. So this is the setup that I'm worried about. I'm worried about the globalists. And you see there's a lot going on behind the scenes with these globalists. They're not all in unison. But they will be willing to wreck everything, the European economy, the Russian economy, if they can't win in Ukraine. And that's what concerns me. And it's so funny. I got to read this. I got to read you this article. It was from Gary Kasparov. He's the former chess champion from Russia that defected to the United States. And he doesn't get it, or maybe he does get it. And he's just trying to make us see his point of view. And I think this is the globalist point of view in this whole thing. Here's what he said. He sent an op-ed to CNN. He says, what Americans must recognize is any suffering we experience now is a necessary price to pay compared to the world we would be ushering in through inaction. So apparently I think he wants to go the full Monty on this thing. Yeah, he wants to take Russia down. He wants to start killing Russian kids. He goes on to say, Russia's invasion of Ukraine threatens to tear apart the fabric of the rules-based world order, where countless of Americans have died to create and to defend. This is where he gets it wrong. Americans didn't die to protect the fabric of a rules-based world order. They fought to defend the freedom of Americans. But again, it's this whole globalist psyop that they're trying to push. Now I just got word that NATO they voted to not create a no-fly zone in Ukraine, which would have started a kinetic war. But again, that just elevates my concern that there will now be some type of false flag, either through a a cyber attack or through actual kinetic confrontation. And they will try to suck the Americans in through Article 5 of NATO. So I just want to play a quick clip from Anthony Blinken. He's the Secretary of State. He's one of the fools that really concerns me about the group of people that are in charge of this right now. So let me play the clip and we'll get back.
And as the Secretary General said, ours is a defensive alliance. We seek no conflict. But if conflict comes to us, we're ready for it. And we will defend every inch of NATO territory.
Well, how is conflict going to come to NATO unless one of the countries provokes the bear? If you keep on poking the bear, they're going to respond. And whether you do it by a false flag or by something a little more overt, it's still creating the response from Russia. And again, what I said before is that these clowns that are in charge of our foreign affairs right now are concerning and should concern you too. You've already got Biden out there, and he's qualifying everything about boots on the ground. He's always said unilateral. However, I'm concerned that he's going to put boots on the ground as a result of some false flag, because there's enough globalists that'll manipulate him into doing this. Because quite frankly, he's an imbecile. I'm not quite sure he knows what the hell he's doing. But that's what concerns me. Now, additionally, what you have also is you've had the House pass a resolution several days ago. And right now I'm just reading from Breitbart. It says 3 House Republicans voted against a resolution on Wednesday that conservatives argued was so broad it could call to commit American troops to a conflict with Russia forever, in quotes. Now, I read the resolution, and again, it reiterates and reinforces Article 5 in NATO. So I behind the scenes, I am very concerned about us responding as a member of NATO. And I think the president should come out and clearly define in what context he would put troops on the ground in Russia. And I think if Blinken's smart, which I don't think he is, he will be telling NATO that these are the ground rules. We're not going to fall under Article 5 if we think that this is a false flag created by some member. Now, again, my bigger concern is that a false flag could be created by the CIA. And then what happens? Because I think these globalists are going to realize that they're losing. We already see it. They're also already acknowledging this. I've got an article here from, I got an article here. Headline says, this is from CNBC. It says, globalization in reverse for the fund industry. Are parts of the world now uninvestable? That may be the case. You are going to create possibly 2 competing economies or 2 competing economic sectors. And the globalists don't want that. They just want one, them. And when they realize that, that's going to be a big problem because then they'll have chaos. And there will be chaos because if the globalists can't have it all, then nobody can have it. They'll wreck everything, or at least try to wreck everything. Okay, let's go to a break. Okay, welcome back. Oil. Right now, as I speak, Brent is at 117.79. And the projections are for it to go up anywhere to 150 to 200. And that could be real problematic for our economy here. You think inflation is high now? If we have Brent at 200, it could be a disaster for this economy. Now, there's two things the Biden administration can do. And the first thing is to restart the Keystone Pipeline, approve the Keystone Pipeline. It sends a symbolic message to the world. The second thing is he has to allow drilling on U.S.-owned land. Has to happen. And both, I don't know, can have an immediate effect on it, but at least it started, because we don't know how long this is going to last with Russia. So start it now. We may not have an impact immediately on the price of oil, but at some point, the Keystone Pipeline will be completed, and we'll get Canadian oil pumped to the United States much easier, and then we can start drilling on our own land, public land. Now, both can be difficult. Who knows if Canada wants to do the pipeline at this point? Secondly, who knows if U.S. drillers trust the administration enough to start drilling again? Because you have to understand, these drillers have to lay out a lot of money up front in order to drill. So what happens if they lay out this money, millions and millions of dollars, they start drilling, and 6 months from now, the crisis is over, and Biden turns around and says, I'm pulling back the leases. You can't drill anymore. Well, these drillers, they're not going to take that risk. So what they need is something more solid. If they can pass if Congress can pass a law that solidifies this, and it can be signed by the president, which would make it much more difficult for a president to come in and change his mind, that could be really helpful. But we have to start drilling again. Because if we're going to sanction Russian oil, we have to make up for that. Because if we sanction for Russian oil coming into the United States, and we don't have anything to cover that loss, that's when we'll see $150 to $200 per barrel. Now, there's a third option which worries me. And this is the Iran deal. And I hope these clowns in the Biden administration don't try to fast-track an Iran deal solely for the purpose of putting Iran oil back onto the market, the open market. And that concerns me. You've got those clowns in Washington say, hey, let's cut a quick deal with Iran. We'll give them everything they want as long as they put oil on the market. So we'll see what happens. I don't have a lot of confidence. And with that said, I want to just go to another clip by Tucker. It's kind of framing everything as far as our domestic policy and those people that are in charge of the decisions we're making in Ukraine. So let's go to that clip, and then we'll come back.
Keep in mind the very people who are proposing all of this are the very same people who defunded our police departments and destroyed our schools and tore down the Teddy Roosevelt statue in New York City. They're the ones who armed the Taliban. They're the ones who devalued the US dollar. They're the ones who brought human slavery back to Libya. They're very good at wrecking things. It's what they do. They planned the Iraq War, and they never apologized for it. So we might want to make sure they don't wreck anything else ever again, especially this country.
Okay, well said, Tucker. Just a couple of things before we move on from Ukraine. The first thing I just wanted to point out is that, I've said in prior episodes that, I've got an issue with the coverage of Ukraine. I just don't think it's fair in the sense that it creates fake news that benefits Ukraine. And you don't help yourself, and you undermine your credibility when you do this. And I'm talking to the mainstream media here in the United States. And one of the things I just wanted to point out is that the mainstream media made such a big deal about this grandmother in Russia that was protesting the war, got arrested. Her picture was all over the place. And again, it's not a good thing to arrest grandmothers or great-grandmothers because she looked older, a typical grandmother. But at the same time, when a grandmother in a walker gets run over by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, well, I expect media coverage from that too. But you didn't hear anything from the mainstream media here in the United States about an older lady in a walker, grandmother in a walker, gets run over by a horse that was manned by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Where's the objectivity here? Where's the fairness? I understand we're in a war, and I understand that the mainstream media wants to benefit Ukraine. But at some point, it just, you undermine yourself. The other thing I just wanted to point out too is, the media was making up all these stories about there's these hit squad that's out to kill Zelensky, to assassinate Zelensky, and these hit squads have been constantly thwarted, and Zelensky's safe, and this and that and this and that. Well, I just thought it was kind of ironic when I read that the first assassination in Ukraine was a pro-Russian mayor. And this is from the Post. It says, the pro-Russian mayor of a Ukrainian city in the self-declared Republic of Luhansk has reportedly been killed after being kidnapped from his home. Volodymyr Struk, 57, who was mayor of Kremenia since 2020, suffered a gunshot wound to the heart after being abducted, according to the Ukrainian news agency, UNIAN. Well, there should be outrage for that. There really should be. And the media doesn't help itself by undermining its credibility. Just give us the truth. Just give it fairness. If you're going to have outrage for assassination squads for Zelensky, have outrage for a poor mayor of some pro-Russian city. And the final thing is that my wife and I like to look at these feeds from, these different international organizations, and we were watching one feed from RT, and it was covering the protests, the Russian protests for Ukraine, and there was a banner on top of the screen. It says, "Well, this television station is funded by the government." And the implication is that it could be fake news because it's funded by the government, which may be. But at the same time, when we were watching the trucker protest up in Canada, there was no such banner for the CTV or the CBC, because all of the television stations are funded by the federal government. So we saw no banner for that. So just play it straight, play it fair. People will believe you more. So with that said, I just want to go to Wisconsin. Wisconsin had done an investigation into the 2020 election. And this was conducted by former Supreme Court Judge Michael Gableman. And Gableman concluded that decertification was a clear option and recommended that Wisconsin look into it. Now, I'll get into that later. But a number of things popped out. And the big one for me is Zuckerberg's involvement in that election in Wisconsin. Now, he had donated through one of his organizations a ton of money to certain cities to help them get out the vote, but only in specific areas, only in highly Democratic areas. And then what they also did is they also tossed out a number of drop boxes, but only in these highly Democratic areas. I want to know how much these Zuckerberg organizations worked hand in hand with the local politics. So how did the information flow from the clerk's office to Zuckerberg's organization, and then was the local Democratic organization involved in getting out the vote? And that's cheating. If you're Zuckerberg, you hand over a ton of money to a clerk's office, and they say, I'm going to work with you getting out the vote, but we're only going to target certain areas. We're only going to pull out the vote that I want. That's wrong. That's cheating. I do want to know where the local Democratic Party fit in here. And I know how election works. I worked in Hudson County, New Jersey. I know how they cheat. The judge said that there were 90 senior citizen centers or assisted living centers where they got 100% of the registered voters to come out. How the heck does that happen? It only happens through cheating. And I know how they do it. They use the guise of COVID to send their people in there, fill out their ballots, and then mail them in. Shocking. If they open those ballots from those 90 assisted living centers, I would say it's 90-10. Biden to Trump. And I'm sure they did the same thing in other areas in affordable housing units, developers units that are affiliated with local politicians. I know how it's done. Now, decertifying an election can be difficult, or will be difficult. As Rudy Giuliani had mentioned, the Constitution is silent on this. However, it doesn't prevent you from decertifying an election. And here's the issue. This thing is going to be held up in court for 2-3 years. So say you hold it up in court for 2 or 3 years. And I still think we should pursue this because we need closure on this. The American people need closure on this election. Now you hear people like Chris Christie and everybody say, oh, you got to move beyond it. No, American people don't want to move beyond it. You can look at the polls. Many Americans think that Biden is illegitimate. Most Republicans and a significant portion of independent voters, I think it's 40% of independent voters think that Biden is illegitimate. They can put 2 and 2 together. They know. And people want closure on this before they can move ahead. And Trump is right. We want closure. But anyway, to make a long story short, this will be in court for a number of years. It'll be litigated. And here's the ironic thing. Trump will win in 2024, and then the courts will say, oh, yeah, you were right. Trump should have been president in 2020. I wouldn't be surprised if that has how it works out. But the decertification process is a legitimate process, and we shall see. Well, I guess I should talk about the State of the Union address earlier this week. I didn't get much out of it. The only thing I can remember from it is that Biden called the Ukrainians uraniums, and then at the end he shouted, go get them. I really think he thought he was coaching a CYO team at the very end of the speech. But in between, I just, he played this old political game. What political hacks usually do is they take a poll and show where they're weak, and then they'll say, let's do it. Perfect example is on the border. He's terrible on the border. And what does he say? We want strong borders. And then with defunding police, he's already come out and said he wants to defund the police. But the pollings, in reality, say that's wrong decision. Well, what does he say? I want to fund the police. These are what hacks say. The American people are onto him. Now, I guess he took some credit for some other stuff. He updated a speech from 1970, threw in COVID, how it was so great with COVID. But that's all it was. That's all you can expect from this guy. Nothing more. And it's shameful. It really is. It's shameful. He's being propped up by the media, and that's dangerous. At some point, he's got to get called out, particularly in this time, because there is no way you can prop up a cataclysmic decision. And this guy is capable right now of making a cataclysmic decision. But other than that, it was a great speech. All right, let's take a break. Okay, just a couple of tidbits before we go into stocks. The average national gas price hit $3.83 today, and it's the highest since 2012. And anticipate this going higher. I just don't know how high. I hear, I'm talking about the East Coast, anywhere up to $5 a gallon we could expect, and don't be surprised. And this will have a huge effect on inflation. The Treasury the Treasury Department assured Wall Street that they can trade oil and gas. I guess there was right after the sanctions came out, there was a day or two after the sanctions came out, there was some confusion on Wall Street whether they could trade Russian oil and gas, and some didn't. And there was an article, I think yesterday, that said that there was some hesitancy, and the price of Russian oil was down. But again, the Treasury came in and said, look, it's okay to trade Russian oil and gas. And then the one interesting thing with these sanctions is, what is this obsession with these oligarch yachts? All I see is pictures of yachts. Oh, we got this one, we got that one, we got this one. Look, at least in the United States, I don't know what the rules are for the other countries. You can't take those and sell them. You just freeze these things. So what is the U.S. government going to do with a 300-foot yacht? Are they going to let it sit there? I heard stories that they're banning refills in different ports for these things. So what are they just going to clog up a marina? Or are they going to clog up a port? I don't understand this thing. I could see if they took it and wanted to sell it, but they can't. And even if they could take them and sell them, what kind of market are you going to have for that? Who's going to buy a yacht like that? Hey, you have a very small circle of people that could buy those yachts. And then what's going to happen 5 years from now when everything forgets about what's going on today? And suddenly, if a person bought that mega yacht, suddenly the Russian oligarchs say, hey, pal, I want that back. And now you've got a huge problem. So I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's just one of those things with the media. And then, New Jersey, the governor of New Jersey lifts its public health emergency, finally. And that's good to see. So let's switch to stocks. So what we had this week is the Fed chair, Jerome Powell. He testified before the Senate Banking Committee this week. And essentially, there are three things that we should expect. The first thing is we should expect at the next Fed meeting, which is March 15th and 16th, a quarter point, at least a quarter point increase. I think going into this, they were anticipating a 0.5% increase. But with the war, with all the uncertainty surrounding oil, I think the prudent thing, at least in their mind, to do is to only increase it a quarter point. The one thing that did concern me, though, is that now they still haven't pulled the trigger on tapering. And what tapering is supposed to be is stopping your quantitative easing policy. Now, what quantitative easing is, I think I explained it a couple episodes ago, is that what the Fed did in order to keep interest rates artificially low, they went out and purchased U.S. Treasuries and other kinds of U.S. debt, and as well as mortgages. And they've continued to do this. And for the past 6 months, they've been saying, okay, we're going to start tapering again, which means that they're going to stop quantitative easing. But they haven't done it yet. And the Fed has been silent on it right now. And at some point, they're going to have to do this in order to get back to normalization. Because just raising interest rates is not going to normalize our stock market and the fundamentals of our economy. So I was a little disappointed that he didn't talk about tapering and give us a clear and concise path as to when they're going to stop this. At some point, they're going to have to, and there's no reason for them not to. And then the third thing he said, he goes, he said the war will impact inflation. And I think we all know that. But those are the three things. And the other thing I just wanted to talk about is a couple of the senators were talking about crypto and how we can make sure that the Russians don't use crypto to circumvent the sanctions. And I think with crypto, and this is what you can track crypto because of the blockchain. You can tell where it's going, whose wallet it went to. So you can track it. So people that say that crypto's, you can't track crypto, you can. look at all these hackers or all these people that shut down these companies and ask for ransom. These ransomware people, a couple of them had got their money returned. So it is trackable. The question is that how are the Coinbases of the world going to track these people and set everything up? It can be difficult, but we shall see. So let's go to the Dow. The Dow finished down 0.53% today to 33,614.8. Year to date, the Dow is down 7.49%. The S&P finished down 0.79% to 4328.87. For the year, the S&P is down 9.18%. The Nasdaq is down 1.66% to 13,313.44. For the year, Nasdaq is down 14.9%. Oil finished, and this is West Texas, finished at $115 per barrel. 10-year bond dropped 10 basis points to 1.738%. Gold was up 2.0146% to $1,974.90. Silver was up 2.67% to $25.885. Bitcoin was down 7.53% to $38,868.71. Ethereum was down 7.38% to $2,599.82. And XRP was down 4.52% to 71 cents. With that said, I want to thank you and to have a good weekend.